about 90 positive cases, and we had about 172 people off on sick leave.
The pandemic is affecting community safety.
Today, I'm pleased to confirm that an additional 140 million rapid tests will be delivered to provinces and territories in the month of January.
While in Ottawa, the federal health minister says help is on the way.
INAC was always perceived as something negative, and we wanted to take it back and turn it into something positive, so we turned it into Indigenous Nations Apparel Company.
And a look back on the year that was 2021 in friendly Manitoba. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. People are scrambling to get tested for COVID-19 as the Omicron variant continues to spread. And at Wednesday's media briefing, the federal government said help is on the way. APTN's Fraser Needham reports.
At Wednesday's COVID briefing, Ottawa says it wants every Canadian to have access to COVID-19 testing. Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos confirmed the government is significantly ramping up the number of rapid testing kits available to provinces and territories.
Today, I'm pleased to confirm that an additional 140 million rapid tests will be delivered to provinces and territories in the month of January. As requested by our colleagues from provinces and territories, these tests will be allocated to them on a per capita basis.
Duclos says the new kits are enough for one rapid test per week for every Canadian for the rest of the month. However, the problem has not been the supply of rapid testing kits, but access to them. The federal government says it supplied 35 million kits in December alone, but complaints continue to pour in of provincial facilities running out of kits within minutes of opening. The Prime Minister says Ottawa will continue to supply them, but how they are distributed is up to the provinces.
When we talk about how one province or another is responding to one aspect or another of the pandemic, we have to recognize that the different regions in this country are facing very different situations. And we are a federation in which the delivery of health care is a responsibility of the provinces, and they will make determinations around how to best serve their citizens.
But Ottawa is responsible for the health care of First Nations people, and Trudeau says the government is doing everything in its power to ensure they have access to testing kits.
We have leaned in specifically and directly on ensuring supports for Indigenous peoples and Indigenous communities across this country. That goes from early vaccinations through Moderna to remote communities in the north back in the beginning of 2021, to specific measures around testing and rapid tests, to extra supports for frontline workers.
As for the not as rapid PCR tests, Canada's Chief Medical Officer Theresa Tam says roughly 1 million of them were done across the country in the last week of December. These will track the spread of the virus and indicate ongoing trends. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Makes my eyes water just watching those tests. A remote Northern First Nation is asking for the military to step in. 185 of Bearskin Lake First Nation's 400-plus members tested positive for COVID-19. They've declared a state of emergency there. Advocate Tanya Cameron is just one of the many people who are helping out. She's raising money for food, supplies, and even log splitters for the community. She spoke with Dennis Ward about how things are going.
Tanya, great to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
At what point did you decide to start this fundraiser?
Well, it was New Year's Eve, actually. I had spent a few days watching developments on social media of the COVID outbreak in Bearskin Lake First Nation. I saw a post by Saul Mamakwa. He's the MPP for Kuwaitno, and Bearskin Lake is one of the First Nations that he represents. And I was really moved by what I've heard and saw in the community, so I thought I would like to help.
How many donations have you received for Bearskin Lake?
Well, I just checked my emails and I keep an Excel spreadsheet, so I'm just surpassed 22,000.
Oh, wow. Well, from the Facebook post, it seems you've had help from all over Ontario, Manitoba. How has this helped your mission here?
The response right across the country has been tremendous, and it would be about 270 donors so far. I was able to work once again with Fresh Market Foods in Sulikout, and I sent them $12,000 and a grocery list from the community. And just today, I'm actually on my way back to Kenora. I sent about $7,000 worth of air purifiers for the community.
Incredible stuff. Tanya, what's been the feedback from Bearskin Lake?
They are so appreciative. I was actually listening to a radio update from Chief Cam, and they are overwhelmed with support by neighboring communities and people that have just been offering support to the community. So I'm just grateful to have some role to help alleviate some of the concerns that are in the community, groceries being one of the number one things. And now I'm moving my focus to look at different supplies that's needed within the community.
Well, our thoughts are with the community, and Tanya, can't thank you enough for being with us here and also for all the work that you always do with these types of fundraisers. Appreciate it.
Miigwech.
And over to Quebec now, one of the worst hit provinces in this fifth wave of the pandemic. Here's the latest there. The hammer came back down just before the new year when Quebec reinstated its overnight curfew and shuttered bars and restaurants. Now, with more than 14,000 cases on the books today, the province reduced its mandatory isolation time from 10 to 5 days, and they're relying on those affected to handle their own contact tracing. And those changes keep on coming. Joining us now with more is our Montreal correspondent, Lindsay Richardson, to talk about the specific impact of it all on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Quebec. Lindsay, how do Quebec's new rules tackle the problems with testing?
Well, as of today, Melissa, Quebec is going to be referring to a priority list to determine who's eligible to receive PCR tests. And First Nations, Inuit, and Métis are one of the 5 groups who are on that list. Now, this obviously comes as response to the fact that our testing centers are completely overrun. Just before the holidays, rapid test kits were in short supply, and the average wait time for a PCR test was 10 days or more. So, for all intents and purposes, this is a good piece of information, but we're still a little unclear as to how this is going to play out, if it means the government is going to be sending more PCR tests to the communities, or whether community members can pretty much skip the line if they go to a regional health center for testing.
Are Indigenous communities faring, how are they faring as this time around?
Well, the inland communities, or the communities that are closer to densely populated urban centers, are the ones that are seeing the normal sort of overflow of Omicron-related cases. Mm-hmm. The hardest hit this time round are the remote regions. So the Cree territory of EUHG, for example, is reporting cases in all of its communities, for a total of about 600 today. And the northern Quebec region of Nunavik is reporting 136 cases, some of them of the Omicron variant, which might not seem like a lot if we look at the big picture of case count, but it is enough for them to suspend all non-essential travel to and from the territory to try to mitigate risk.
We know Bearskin Lake in Ontario, they asked Ottawa to bring in the Army to help with the outbreak. Do you know of any First Nations or Inuit communities in Quebec that are requesting similar assistance?
So the Army is actually physically here in Montreal to help out with giving out booster shots to the population. So we decided to check in with Indigenous Affairs to see if they've heard of any requests. The answer we got back was no, not at the moment. But a ministry spokesperson did tell us that they are having weekly meetings with the chiefs of the Assembly of First Nations, Quebec, Labrador, for status updates related to COVID-19. And the minister assured us that he is ready at any time to push up a request from the communities to Indigenous Services Canada if the need presents itself in the coming weeks.
Well, here we are, I think, in the 5th wave. I don't think any of us thought that we'd be going through it still now, but here we are, and it doesn't look like we're going to be wrapping this up anytime soon. But thanks you for joining us and updating us what's going on in Quebec.
Thanks for having me, Melissa. Stay safe.
To the Middle Province now, the Winnipeg Police Service has declared a state of emergency, saying that roughly 13% of its staff are on COVID leave. This comes after yesterday's announcement in Manitoba to keep school kids at home until January 17th. Michelle Karlenzig has a rundown of the COVID situation here in Manitoba.
Winnipeg's police services are shuffling workers due to COVID-19 cases. Chief of Police Danny Smythe has called a state of emergency.
We had roughly about 90, we were dealing with about 90 positive cases, and we had about 172 people off on sick leave. What that meant for us is just to redeploy some of our current resources to ensure that we have proper resources in General Patrol.
Smythe says there are no current shortages of officers on the street and response times will not be affected. School children in Manitoba will follow other provinces by moving to remote learning until January 17th. The news came yesterday from Education Minister Cliff Cullen.
This extra week of remote learning will provide time for distribution of additional masks and rapid tests to schools across the province.
Premier Heather Stephenson emphasized why they made the move.
That this is about the education stakeholders asking for an extension to put the appropriate measures in place to ensure the further safety for kids in-class learning.
Children of essential workers will continue to learn in person. And Manitoba's testing process is officially shifting because of backlogs. Dr. Jazz Atwal announced most people who get tested will receive a rapid test instead of a PCR.
This is to preserve our laboratory testing capacity.
Atwal says the province is estimating missing 8 to 10 Omicron cases for every single reported case. If that's correct, the latest batch of 9,000 new cases since Friday could be closer to 70,000. Michelle Karlenzig, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We always want to hear what you think about any of the news that we bring you or the stories that we should be covering. Here's how you can let us know. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see all of our latest stories. Earlier this week, Wet'suwet'en Clan and supporters left a blockade site in northern BC. Coastal GasLink pipeline, the company involved in the dispute, says they will now resume work on the project. APTN's Lee Wilson has more.
In mid-December, members of the Gidimt'en Clan reoccupied a blockade site known as Coyote Camp at a Coastal GasLink drill site for over 2 weeks. The Wet'suwet'en Clan, along with supporters, say they're upholding an eviction by Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs from 2020, who remain opposed to the natural gas pipeline in their territory located in northern BC. According to a press release from the Gidimt'en Access Point, the group controlling access, they left the drill site blockade to evade potential arrest by RCMP. CGL put out a statement. They will resume work in the territory. On Monday, January 3rd, 2020, Coastal GasLink confirmed opposition group had departed the Martin Forest Service Road and Maurice River drill site. Work is safely resuming along the Coastal GasLink project route after the holiday break. The company has a BC Supreme Court injunction in the area. The 670-kilometer natural gas pipeline is 60% complete, according to the company. In an email statement to APTN News, RCMP say they're doing patrols to ensure access on the forestry road, but had no update. We will continue to follow this developing story. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
Time for a break, but we still have lots of news ahead, so stay with us. Welcome back. The big news out of Manitoba in 2021 was largely political. Manitoba's premier resigned well before his term was up under a cloud of criticism on the race relations front. But as APTN's Michelle Karlenzig reports, there was also plenty to celebrate here in 2021. Here's a look back at the year that was in Manitoba.
We covered many stories this year, but the biggest one broke on Canada Day, when 2 Queen statues were toppled at Manitoba's legislative grounds. What followed made waves in Manitoba's Indigenous community when Premier Brian Pallister replied to the incident with this statement.
The people who came here to this country before it was a country and since didn't come here to destroy anything. came here to build.
The comment sparked outrage, and weeks later, Manitoba's Indigenous Minister Eileen Clark stepped down. She said her voice and the voices of others were not being heard. As one Indigenous minister stepped down, another stepped in. Alan Lajamodiere made his first speech as minister weeks later, stating the founders of residential schools had good intentions. NDP opposition leader Wab Kinew interrupted that speech.
And I cannot accept you saying what you just said about residential schools. It was the express intent of residential schools to kill the Indian in the child.
Manitoba said goodbye to Brian Pallister 1 month later when he announced his departure as Premier, stating he wanted to focus on friends and family. Moving away from politics and onto some positive moments on Treaty 1 territory.
I wanted to come up with a name that was really cool, you know, something trendy, kind of cheeky at the same time.
Michelle Cameron opened her store INAC as a way of reclaiming colonial language. INAC used to be known as Indian Northern Affairs Canada, which drew lots of criticism from the Indigenous community. APTN's Daryl Stranger caught up with the store owner who wanted to take back the meaning of INAC.
INAC was always perceived as something negative, and you know, we wanted to take it back and turn it into something positive, so we turned it into Indigenous Nations Apparel Company.
The Indigenous owned and operated store features art and clothing incorporating local artists. Daryl Stranger was there this summer covering a blessing ceremony welcoming the new home of the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. Elders and survivors gathered at the University of Manitoba, where the new centre will be built, and it was an emotional day for many.
You know, that centre is going to be a ceremonial space. There will be exhibits there. We hope to have and preserve all of the survivor statements that were given during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a place to live so that students, their families, and researchers and others can come in and listen to them and hear what happened to them in the schools.
25-year-old Riley Nepenat from Winnipeg cycled across the country for youth suicide rates in Northern First Nations. Nepenat started in British Columbia and ended in Halifax this August. Tatasqueyak Cree Nation lost 13 youth to suicide in the first half of 2021. Nepenat said he biked to inspire the community's youth.
You know, having your voice heard is empowering, and it's so important for our youth to feel that. You know, if we're going to be able to create leaders, we have to empower them. That's the foundation of building a strong leader.
NCI-FM, an Indigenous radio station, celebrated 50 years on the air this fall. The station started in the small northern city of Thompson, Manitoba, and has since grown to a network of 57 transmitters across the province. The celebration included Indigenous music, art, and strolling down memory lane. CEO David McLeod has been there since the early days.
And I think that's what's so important about the Indigenous voice and the Indigenous stories, is that when it comes from our community, there's a different grasp and understanding, particularly when it comes to language as well, and culture and all those other things.
A Winnipeg jersey-making company teamed up with Orange Shirt Society and the Downey Wenjack Foundation to send 10,000 jerseys to minor hockey players across Canada. Organizers said it was aimed to spark conversation around residential schools with young athletes.
The kids asked the question, why are we wearing these jerseys? And from there, you know, the conversation starts, and we hope to maintain that, you know, momentum 12 months a year, not just, you know, September 30th.
And more orange to finish off a year of Manitoba news. Small in size but leading large, a young Indigenous boy led a crowd of roughly 10,000 people in downtown Winnipeg as they marched for Orange Shirt Day. Crowds flocked from the Canadian Museum for Human Rights to St. John's Park.
Being witness to what is happening here today has really moved me to understand that our community and our nation is moving towards compassion and understanding.
Marcel French is a 60 Scoop survivor who attended the march, and he was proud to see such a turnout and hoped the momentum would continue.
I hope that when they leave from here, that they can remember that in the following days, weeks, and have the understanding of what we as First Nations, Métis, of what we have lost and how we plan to regain it.
Michelle Carlenze, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Time for another break, but still ahead, mysterious snow sculptures on the West Coast. We'll tell you about them when we come back. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Over the Christmas season, our viewer Jan Gladish made a Christmas tree from the driftwood she collected around Quadra Island in British Columbia. Might want to keep that up year-round. It's so pretty. You can send us your photos to share at aptn.ca for a chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at tomorrow's weather forecast.
To the east coast, we've got 8 and cloud for St. John's, 0 and snow for Charlottetown and Halifax. For Nukushawak, you're looking at -25, and flurries. Kuujjuaq, sunshine, -25. Gaspé, -7 and snow. Quebec City, -3 and snow. North Bay, you're getting snow too, -14. Toronto, -2, flurries there. 23 in -23 in Kapuskasing, you're the only one with sunshine in that portion of Ontario. -27, mix of sun and clouds in Churchill. -24 in Norway House. -24 in cloud in Winnipeg. -26 in sunshine for Brandon. -24 in sunny for Swift Current. Yorkton, -27 in sunshine. -28 for Stony Rapids and Buffalo Narrows. Sunshine there. -30 and sunny for Uranium City. Lots of sun, but very cold for northern Alberta. -35 in High Level. -39 in Peace River. -24 and sunny for Edmonton. -22 in snow for Medicine Hat. Kamloops, -6 in snow. Ballacoola, you're getting snow too, -8. Dease Lake, -33 but sunny. Smithers, -17 in snow. Mayo, -37 and snow. Same with you. Dawson City, -30 for Fort Simpson. Snow there. Wati, -21 and flurries. Inuvik and Fort McPherson, both -17 with snow. Tuktoyaktuk, -23, mix of sun and cloud. Uyat, -31 and clear skies. Whale Cove, -28 and snow. Igloolik, you got clear skies too, -29 degrees. Pangertung, -25 and snow.
A woman in British Columbia is making quite a name for herself with an elaborate snow sculpture, even though she's keeping her identity secret.
You can refer to her as the snow ninja who comes around and builds her sculptures.
The mysterious sculptor uses environmentally friendly paints to bring her snow art to life. From wild animals to a Grinch, she's been dazzling neighbors in Campbell River throughout the winter. She's hoping for more snow to keep flexing her creative muscles. We are all out of time for your midweek news. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.